Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Dear listener, we're here very honored and happy because our dear friend Janet Duncan is here with us directly from the United Kingdom. She has been practicing Spiritism for decades, and she actually, as you can listen again and again, her previous program, an interview with us here at Kardec Radio, entitled Incarnation is Not a Holiday, which was quite a success. She talks about the time in which she met Chico Xavier, got acquainted with Spiritism, and practically founded solid foundation of the Spiritist movement in the United Kingdom, now working in collaboration with Elsa Rossi and many other members in the Spiritist community in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much, Janet, for being with us at Kardec Radio once again.
Not at all. The pleasure is mine.
So, Janet, I think one of the most important aspects when studying Spiritism is the studying about mediumship. It's not something that sometimes people quite understand the reasons why we need to study about Spiritism. What would you say to the listener on the basic reasons why we need to study mediumship to understand its ins and outs?
Well, yes, your comment is certainly very valid, Vanessa, because so many people seem to be a little bit genius, and think that, oh, well, it's something natural, so we just let it happen. Mm-hmm. And this is where a lot of confusion arises and a lot of mistakes happen. I think first and foremost what I would like to comment actually is the fact that mediumship means that we are able to communicate with the spiritual world. Okay, that's very basic. But what about a certain law within nature? Because we have lots of different laws in nature, but at this moment, this particular law, the law of attraction, this is vital, because we cannot expect to receive communication from any spiritual entity that is not on our personal wavelength. And very often people who are rather naive, we'll say, about mediumship expect to be able to just communicate with the high realms and the high spirits of light. And that just doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And they don't seem to be aware that they will mostly, especially when you begin, you will only be communicating with lower elements. Even if eventually, with study and preparation, you will be able to reach the rather higher realms, but in the beginning, you need to start everything in a basic way. I mean, you can't learn to be a doctor unless you go through medical school. Mm-hmm. And learn all the ABCs of medicine. And you can't expect to be a medium, I was going to say a successful medium, and I don't really like that word successful because that has all sorts of rather unfortunate connotations, but people do think of mediumship as being a successful medium.
I don't want to interrupt you, but as you're saying this, it comes to my awareness something that is hand in hand with one of the teachings by Leon Denis in the book In the Invisible, when he talks about education and work of the mediums, when he says precisely what you're mentioning to the listeners, which is so important. He says, nothing truly important is acquired without work. And he says, especially when we are searching for superior deeds, and he says we need to exercise, we need to have a preparatory work, and it's something that is not going to happen out of the blue, and just because once you find out you're a medium, then boom, you can sit down at a mediumistic meeting. And I'm saying this, Janet, because
Yes.
you have much more experience than we do, and you can tell how many people sometimes come to the Spiritist Center claiming that they found out they are mediums, and just for the fact they think they are ready to sit down at a mediumistic meeting. And
Exactly.
But it's not quite the way it is, right?
No, definitely not. Because let me point out as well, at this particular moment, I think it's the right moment, mediumship can be extremely dangerous.
Why?
Because if we are not fully aware and if we have no understanding, we will very, very quickly find ourselves in the hands of, I would even go so far as to say, evil spirits. We have to understand one thing, Vanessa, that we know on our physical material life here on the planet that there's all kinds of people, good and bad, nice and nasty, etc., etc. And what people don't realize is that the spiritual world around our planet is exactly the same. Because the people in the spiritual world are the people who at that particular moment are not in the physical form, who are not incarnated. And we're always changing back and forth, back and forth. We know that our incarnation lasts for a certain given time, and then we're back again in the spiritual world. So we have to get away from the idea that spirits are different to us. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
This is so, so important. And I've recently discovered something that I hadn't been absolutely consciously aware of. There seem to be, even in Brazil, which is the country with the most knowledge of all of these things, there seem to be two lines of thought. If you are a natural medium, you just have to sit down at a table and it will all happen. And the other thought is that, as we've just been saying, we need to learn what it is, how it is, and how we can prepare ourselves adequately for this task if we have the opportunity to work with mediumship. And I find that the people who have the idea that it's just enough to sit at the table and let the spiritual world do everything else, these people are frequently at different phases of their life, and sometimes it stays with them for the whole of their life, accompanied by spirits who are very detrimental to them and to others. So that we do need care and we need to know what we're doing. Do we know what is the focus point of mediumship in the physical body? Do we know for sure what is the focus point of reception in the physical body?
Well, that's a good question, and it's something to meditate before anything else.
If we have a television, we have the apparatus in our sitting room, but something has to happen before we can get a picture, right? We plug it in the electricity, but nothing happens. What do we need to focus and find and acquire on our screen a clear picture? I think we all know we need to have an aerial or one of those big dishes that capture
the satellites.
The things. And in our physical body, we have that apparatus. And at some point, I think even you the other day when we were talking, you mentioned a question here, can anyone be a medium? Well, we all have that physical potentiality, and it may awaken during a physical life and it may not. It can be sometimes provoked to begin to function. And these are things as well that we need to pay attention to, because the aerial will have the capacity to structure in accordance with the apparatus. And we, the physical body, the incarnate person, we are the apparatus. And mediumship is, of course, all worked on the mind. It's the vibratory thought that we are giving all the time, unceasingly. We can't stop thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And this vibration creates different, I suppose I could say, different wavelengths, and it creates certain kinds of attunement. So if there is no preparation, no study, no deeper understanding of this faculty, our mind is just there floating around, doing nothing in particular, and it will obviously have a capacity to latch on to a number of, I'll call them things for the moment, because the vibratory source is either, let's put it this way, as human beings in the physical form, we very often, more often than not, our daily thoughts run around being selfish, and we all have a certain amount of pride in us, and we are not always, and sometimes some people never seem to be linked in to God.
So then you would say for those reasons we need to be prepared. But the question is, based on this fact that we emit our thoughts and we naturally attune with our minds and we receive their influence, would we say anyone can be a medium?
Theoretically, yes. But the position in accordance with our life plan and program that has been prepared before we come into the physical body, maybe it is not programmed for that aerial to function on that level at all in that incarnation. It does happen more often than we realize. Although now we are coming into a new, more spiritual phase on our planet, so a great many more people now will be having the possibility of utilizing the mediumship faculty much more than in the past.
Interesting. But what would be then the signs of mediumship for people who are listening to us and they are like, am I a medium? Would there be signs for them to identify whether they're medium or not?
Whether their faculty is open to working, whether it has some kind of work faculty there available to them, yes. And I mean, it can start from all kinds of simple things, because even strong intuition, and I stress the strong intuition could be a sign. Obviously, if people are hearing lots of voices, well, it's fairly open, to say the least of it.
Okay.
People who see spirits, that is certainly something that indicates that the faculty is open, it's working. We cannot say, just because of a person hearing a lot of voices, that they are supposed to be what we call in Spiritism a working medium.
So what would be the difference between being a medium and a working medium?
Because we can have our faculty open, but it's not under control, or we have reached a point where we even talk about obsession. For example, I mean, a person who is schizophrenic, that person is a medium. Beyond all doubt, this is the biggest, strongest sign of the mediumship faculty being open. But in almost every case, it is not meant to be understood as the sign or signal, whatever you wish to call it, that the person should be working as a medium. Some people, their faculty is so open and taken over by entities on the spiritual level that wish them harm, and create massive confusion. And these kind of people have to be able to close down, shut off, switch off their faculty. Now, this is a very long process, and it's a topic that I'm not going to go into any more detail today about. It's very complicated. I would only just say that it is, from my personal point of view, I don't mean any disrespect to anybody, but it is deplorable. The people who are suffering from schizophrenia, who are just given tablets. If they're lucky, they're given medication to shut down the faculty, because the medical profession needs very badly to open their mind to things beyond the material.
Because there are schizophrenic people that are not truly schizophrenic, they are mediums, right?
A schizophrenic is a medium. But the mediumship faculty is totally out of control. And the reasons behind that, as I say, that's for another day. But we have to understand that, okay, we are incarnate, we are working in a physical body, but our essence is always spiritual. So if the medical profession only looks at the material body in any circumstance, they are only working with half a person. So we cannot be absolutely categoric about different kinds of mediumship and whether they're workable, whether they're not workable, whether they for what purpose. For example, many times we discover that people are being given the possibility of either hearing certain things or seeing spirit with actually no other purpose than to wake them up to the fact that there is more in life than the physical. There is the spiritual aspect of life. When they come to a realization that, oh my goodness, yes, there is a spiritual life on here, that mediumship, apparent mediumship open, will just shut down. Because for the particular incarnation that they are living, this work with mediumship is not programmed for them.
Understood. It's about the continuity of life. Janet, we're going to have to give a short break, but when we come back, we'd like to understand more about the types of mediumship, okay?
No problem.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Keep emotional control under all circumstances. An unbalanced nervous system means an unbalanced life. If difficulties threaten your balance, utilize prayer. Prayer is effective medicine for all the illnesses of the soul.
Available for purchase, the book, This Obsession, psychographed by the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier. In this book, the spirit André Luiz recruits new groups of workers of goodness whose intent is to aid in the readjustment of those no longer in the physical plane. Learn more by purchasing your copy at www.sgny.org.
Kardec Radio, live, every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Listen to our sister radio, Bazera Online Web Radio, retransmitting Kardec Radio shows 3 times a day. Also, beautiful and inspiring programs in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. go to www.spiritist.com.
And now we return to our program.
So we are back, dear listener. We are back with Janet Duncan, and she has been working in the United Kingdom Spiritist movement for decades, and she has an extensive experience in mediumship, according to Spiritism. Janet, right before the break, you were telling us about critical points regarding mediumship, and especially the interactions, though we're not going to make further comments regarding it, but the overlap between mediumship, mental issues, etc. Now, for those who are listening to us, and you often think that being a medium is about seeing spirits, hearing spirits, or writing, being an instrument of the writing, but there are so many types of mediumship, right? Could you please tell us from the Spiritist perspective what would be the types of mediumship?
Well, you've asked basically an impossible question. For the simple reason that nobody has ever been able to make a list of all the different types of mediumship. Mm-hmm. In the UK here, and especially within the area of the spiritualist mediums, every medium functions with a different type of faculty. Mm. Within Spiritism, we try to utilize this faculty for a really useful purpose, because unfortunately a lot of people find that they can do all kinds of things with their faculty, and they become famous, they become well known, which stimulates their pride, mm-hmm. and they commercialize all the time, and they're always seeking to have some kind of faculty that the other mediums don't have. So it becomes just an attraction. Now, within Spiritism, we realize that the real, I suppose I could say the best use, the most productive use in spiritual terms, because the use of your mediumship faculty should be a big help in the process of your spiritual evolution. Mm-hmm. So we mostly restrict the different kinds. We use trance mediumship, semi-trance. We can use very strong intuitive mediumship. Psychography, of course, is very popular for writing all the beautiful books from the spiritual world, like Chico Xavier used to write, mm-hmm. and Divaldo Franco writes, and using the powers for healing. I believe in the States you call it passi, mm-hmm. etc. But if somebody reads the Medium's book, prepared by Allan Kardec, yes. which many mediums consider it to be their Bible, yes. There will be lots more explanations there about different types of mediumship. It's also interesting that sometimes a mediumship faculty will have but a brief appearance, as it were, with a particular person for a particular reason, and it may then take a particular form of mediumship to call attention or to give advice and to help, and then it will shut down, and the person was not able to work constantly with that faculty.
Within that topic, Kardec mentions that, as you said, there are so many different types of mediumship that one could barely really be that ambitious outlining all the types, but he educationally shares with us some of the main types, and he divides into categories, as you said, the ones that are of intellectual effects, the ones of physical effects. And it's interesting when we talk about physical effects because, for example, when people are looking for physical healing manifestations or materializations, we're talking about mediumship of physical manifestations. At Kardec's time, there were many people interacting at that level and much materializations, table turnings, wrappings. But nowadays, it seems that people are more focused on the healing aspect of mediumship. What would you say about this?
Well, yes, I mean, this was a great, we'll say, epidemic almost of the faculty in starting there in 1848, with the Hydesville and the Fox sisters and all that way. It became universally known.
Yeah.
But I have to put in brackets here quickly. We've always had mediumship available, and there are many, many instances all through human life. And, of course, Moses was a very great materialization medium. What happened in 1848, starting from 1848, was the fact that this was a big wake-up for everybody. We must progress. That's what life is all about, progressing spiritually, not just progressing intellectually and improving our intelligence, which is very important, but we must improve and open ourselves up spiritually. This is how we really grow and one day become perfect spirits and live in the realms of great light, like Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we're very lazy. We just go along, dawdling along all the old time. So there had to be some kind of explosion to wake us up.
Mm.
That's what I would say there. So all these events, it's not just what happens on the physical level, but we have to understand the great work going on from the spiritual side of life. And here I would recommend everybody to read the book by Chico Xavier, received through Chico Xavier from André Luis, in the realms of mediumship. Because here we are looking, as all of the books of André Luis, they are in the spiritual world looking down at the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
We are here all the time trying to look up into the spiritual world, and we don't manage to do that very well because we have to live here in the physical world for all the purposes. It is so important, physical life.
Mm-hmm.
It is our big boost towards spiritual progress.
Mm-hmm.
The mediumship is a tool, and once we become more spiritualized, we will find the faculty is much more open to us, and we will be able to understand more what actually goes on around us from the spiritual side. So they are working so hard and creating situations for us, and it's a very, very complex subject. You have to read about it.
Yes.
We must study, and anybody, the best book to begin with for mediumship is the Medium's book. But we must go through all of the André Luis books because they are so fantastic. They teach us so much. You mentioned Leon Denis, very, very important. The books of Emmanuel. All the different circumstances there. There are no two situations that are 100% identical because it is the individual that receives the benefit from their kind of mediumship and the special phenomena that happen around and with them. This is why it always has to be so different. Now, you mentioned about materialization. This has been very popular in the UK of recent years. It is so strange, or perhaps that's not the right word, perhaps I should just say interesting, why the British public in general here still deny the existence of God, and they definitely don't like Jesus. And they refuse to consider anything else. They've shut their minds to this. Other people and mediums have been stimulated to try to produce materializations with the belief that if you see, you have to believe. But it doesn't really happen. And just the other day on the television, there was a program in this area, and the gentleman admitted, quite frankly, he said, "Oh, well, yes, I saw it all, but I don't believe." So, I mean, we are still on our planet at a very difficult phase, but things are beginning to change. And for this reason, it is so important. I come back to say again, we must study about spiritual life in general, because obviously it encompasses mediumship.
Since you said that we need to study a lot, then are there other elements that would encompass a healthy and productive mediumship activity?
Very definitely.
What would they be?
To become a real Christian.
And what does that mean?
Well, first and foremost, it means inner reform.
Okay.
And this means we have to understand ourselves. We need to practice self-analysis. We need to find the courage to look deep inside ourselves and find out what kind of a person I really am. It's quite interesting today because Margaret Thatcher returned to the spiritual world.
Yes.
And the radio and the television are full of Margaret Thatcher. And I've never in my life heard comments like I'm hearing now about this lady. Because there are those that absolutely hate her and they're jumping for joy that she's dead. And there are those that are trying to turn her into a goddess. And here we can see so many. She had wonderful points in her character, but she had a lot of negative things. And we're all like this because we're not yet perfect. One of the most important habits for all of us, but for the medium, it is totally, absolutely essential, is a regular habit of prayer. The study of the Gospel according to Spiritism. This is the most important book that can help us to change. And here we change our whole vibratory system. And this will allow us to work with our mediumship faculty with safety, and we will be able to attract the spirits of a higher level that can bring us more teachings and can bring us all sorts of benefits, not only for ourselves, not only for the medium themselves as an individual, but for the work they do in helping others, because Spiritism also is adamant about one thing. Without charity, there is no salvation.
Exactly. So basically, it's the inner work of each medium. After the break, Janet, we want to discuss more about the reasons why Spiritism proposes that we practice mediumship in a group. Okay?
Right.
We will return to our program after these messages.
A new masterpiece has just been released by EDI-CEI of America, Memoirs of a Suicide by Yvonne Pereira, a phenomenal book about what happens to suicides in the afterlife. Truly instructive, it brings greater hope that no one really dies or spends eternity in damnation. A true account of the mercy and providence of God. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Come for the beautiful event sponsored by the British Union of the Spiritist Societies. It is the second British Spiritist Congress on May 11th and 12th at the Quakers Friends House in London, United Kingdom. For more information, please go to www.buss.org.uk.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone, the online study of the Spirit's Book and the Gospel according to Spiritism. Spiritism for Everyone meets every Wednesday evening and Saturday morning using the latest technology in web conferencing. You can join in from any computer in the comfort of your home or office, no matter where you are in the U.S. or the world. Spiritism for Everyone is open, free, and requires no registration. To access the web live meetings, go to www.spiritus.us. Spiritism for Everyone is a program of the United States Spiritist Council.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are back having a blast here with Janet Duncan from the United Kingdom. She has been telling us much about the ins and outs of mediumship, and now we are at a point in which we need to understand furthermore about the reasons why Spiritism advises us to practice mediumship in a group instead of individually, because in many countries where Spiritism is not too influential yet, mediumship is usually practiced individually, but Spiritism says we should be practicing mediumship in a group. Why, Janet?
Well, the answer is really quite simple. I've already mentioned that mediumship can be extremely dangerous. And in a group, we have almost guaranteed, depending, of course, on the group exactly, but we should, if it's a proper group, organized in a proper way, we have safety and security.
How so?
Because we are all looking after each other, and the group comprises a person to lead the group. It comprises mediums. It comprises people who have a very good capacity for prayer, which is useful within the aspect of healing and the protection of the work, because there will be, depending on the kind of work that's being done, there will be, within rescue, the group builds up a special protection so that it is able for the mediums, the trance mediums, to receive spirits of a very low level, spirits who are very, very unhappy and whose vibratory accompaniment is very, very low. Because of the prayer, they are protected. They receive guidance, they receive counseling, they receive help, and they receive healing, and a great deal of good work within charity can be achieved. Now, there always needs to be at least half an hour given over to the study of the faculty before you begin the practice. And apart from the regular sessions of practical work, there should be also other regular sessions of pure study. Now, all of this together with the constant prayer, it maintains a very special vibratory ambient all around those people who pertain to that particular group. The group might be within a spiritist center, or it might be outside, where, as you say, spiritism is not regularly practiced, and where there perhaps are no actual spiritist centers which offer a great deal of protection. Some people will set up mediumship practice in isolation, but group work, we should never work as an isolated medium alone, because we have no real protection, and because we are who and what we are on this planet at this time, beings that are still a very, very long way away from perfection, we need to have extra protection around us.
Mm-hmm.
On a high level. Otherwise, we or that medium will almost inevitably fall prey to inferior spirit communicators,
mm-hmm.
because they will start to tell us how wonderful we are and what good mediums we are, and they will boost up our pride, and we'll think we're absolutely fantastic. And this is a terrible, terrible danger.
Exactly. We totally agree with you. That would include also the problems of charging for mediumship, right? Because, yeah? What would you say?
This is the unpardonable thing to do, because the spirits who wish us well, the spirits who are not necessarily spirits of light, because it's very difficult for us to attract spirits of great light, but we can attract the good spirits. They will not come anywhere near us if we commercialize.
Mm-hmm.
If we start working, they may give us a chance to change our mind, or if a group has started to work and no charging, but then they decide to charge, all of the good, protective, spiritual companions will immediately leave that group to the mercy of all the inferior spirits. Jesus told us, what you receive for free, you give for free. Now, the information that a medium is given from the spiritual world is not from them. It is from the spirits in the spiritual world. You can't set up a bank account in the spiritual world. You can't send a check back to the spiritual world. The check goes in your own pocket.
Exactly.
And this is absolutely, if you want to make a mess of your mediumship, then start commercializing.
Good. That's a good point. That's really a good point. So now we're talking about what it is to be a good medium. So we know based on this last comment you made, being a good medium does not encompass charging, but what would be a greater definition of good mediumship?
The person who has the faculty, who wishes to utilize their faculty to the best possible way, has to acquire humility. This is the most essential ingredient. And we are not naturally humble.
Mm-hmm.
We are, unfortunately, on the other side of the scales. And this is why the study and the prayer, for us to be able to practice, to acquire humility as one of the principal ingredients. If the medium is not humble, then you should never trust any communication that comes from them.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the wonderful things about Chico Xavier.
Mm-hmm.
He has become one of the world's greatest mediums, and he was a very, very humble little man. He had only 4 years of official education. He worked all his life in a very simple little job that gave him enough money to buy his clothes and pay for his food and pay the rent, but not a penny more. He often worked all through the night with his psychography, writing his books, and all the daytime. So there was absolutely no commercialization, but above all else, although he became famous as such, he remained exactly the humble little, almost illiterate person in humbleness, not in intelligence, because he learned a lot from the spirits, and he became very intelligent and intellectual. But he was in his heart, in his innermost self, he was the most humble person that you could possibly meet.
I know it's moving because also you met him, so you could verify with your own eyes, right?
With not only my own eyes, but with my own sentiments and feeling. And having had the opportunity on various occasions of being with him outside of meetings in his private life, he was that simple little countryman. And that's what made him a great medium. What is a good medium? A good medium is a good Christian and a very humble person. I don't think that I can put it any clearer than that.
Yes, the number one thing, I think, as the Spirit saying the gospel, with that virtue of humility, everything else just unfolds, because the spirits, as Kardec says, they appreciate very much the mediums who are humble, who know that without the concourse of the spirits, they wouldn't be able to produce anything. Thus,
absolutely,
everything they produce is not theirs, which is quite interesting, because nowadays we hear, it's so funny, Janet, because when Kardec published the compilations of all the mediumistic meetings, we know the reasons why he couldn't disclose the names of the mediums, because he wanted to protect them, because at the time was quite a different story. But nowadays, we see not only the reverse, but we see the exaggeration, even mediums who publish books claiming it's theirs, even though they put the name of the spirit author, think that book or that production is theirs, which is totally on the opposite direction of the mediumship of Chico Xavier, for example.
Absolutely. And we will see a lot of mediums who are beginning to travel around the world giving lectures, and when you get to meet them, you have to recognize that they are not as humble as they ought to be. And when you listen to some of these lectures, you will realize that you need to be very careful what you're hearing. And you must always question everything with logic, with rationalization. And this is one thing that I find so important within the Spiritist teachings and Kardec's advice. We are too gullible. If we hear something special, something nice, we just accept it without any kind of rationalization. Kardec says to us, do not take anything, do not take even the Spiritist teachings, his 5 books and all the other books, without questioning for yourself the logic and the rationalization in whatever it is you've just been studying. And if you are not happy with it, leave it aside. Don't necessarily throw it away, but leave it aside. Only accept the things that you are convinced through your rationalization and the logic that you can accept that. So we find that even some of our very well-known mediums, they occasionally may get off balance a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I blame the general public mostly for this.
Why?
Because they're inclined to get so enthusiastic because the lectures given are very, very special, very, very fantastic. But the enthusiasm from the general public is a terrible test for the medium,
Mm-hmm.
because they have to fight not becoming proud and, oh, what a fantastic medium I am. They have to work very, very hard to maintain their humility, their humbleness.
Mm-hmm.
And the public, the general public, should recognize this. Now, to just give a normal applause, enthusiastic applause, is okay. But there are some mediums who seem to attract, sometimes I lack the words in English to express what I want. They treat them as if they were little gods.
Exactly.
They worship them and they follow them all around. And it's all this person or that person. They have their following that absolutely, literally worships them.
Exactly.
This is the most deadly thing for the medium.
Mm-hmm.
And we are all human. Very often the medium cannot protect themselves. They fall prey to this adulation.
And I agree with you, and we would say to the listener right now how co-responsible we are for the failure of many mediums. When we read books by Divaldo Franco, he received from Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, The Spirit, Torments of Obsession, which is already in English, and it's about to be published by his own publisher. In that book, we have many accounts, as you know, Janet, of mediums who failed because people were worshiping them and inciting their vanity. So it's a double responsibility there.
Absolutely. I mean, Divaldo has, you might almost say, specialized in this problem of obsession.
Mm-hmm.
And in all of its different aspects. And these books are very important, and we must read them.
You gave us so much food for thought. We don't want to let you go, but we know time has come. What would you say as your final comments regarding the overall spiritist take on mediumship?
Well, study is the word, the key word, all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
We must never think we know it all. We must never think that we don't have to study anymore. And never work in isolation. Never, never charge. And never, never cease to work very, very hard with ourselves so that we can overcome all our human weaknesses and gradually acquire some virtues.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps I'll just add a little bit here, because we have lots of little books of messages that help us with our own inner reform. But what I have discovered personally, and especially in these last few years, we would like to be better people. We want to be better people because we feel much happier. Life is much better. And as a medium, we are able to work more and help other people much more. But we have so many failing points in our characters, and we don't seem to be able to make much progress.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it seems that we make no progress at all. And I was on that dilemma. I wasn't happy with what I was managing to achieve, because it didn't seem as if I was managing to achieve anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had I think I should say and can say, the intuition. Think, meditate, what do I consider to be my worst failing? What is the thing that is most important for me to work on? Take your time, decide which you think is what you really need to work on. Then get hold of one aspect and concentrate all of your strength on that one aspect. Forget all the rest, because there's lots of virtues we need and we haven't got. But choose one and work on that. And take your time. It's going to take time, definitely. It can be months, it can be years, but the day will come when you suddenly realize, oh, I think I'm managing to achieve something with that. If I was never patient, let's say patience is a virtue we definitely need and usually lack, I'm suddenly realizing I'm being able to be much more patient. Fantastic. When you see that some result is happening, then you can begin to cogitate what other one you would like to start working with as well. Don't stop working patience, but you can join another. Because if you try to work all of them at the same time, a bit here and a bit there, you're not going to achieve anything.
Exactly.
And this is so important. And we get so disanimated. Oh, but I've been trying, and we don't see any result, and in the end we almost give up. So these are little hints to help us with this very, very important work of becoming better people and spiritualizing ourselves. It has not any real connection, direct connection. No, it can have. But I mean, whether we're a medium or not, we need to do this. And if we are a medium, it becomes very, very important.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's very resourceful. And we'd like to thank you so much and give you a big hug in all of our names of Kardec Radio for sharing so much knowledge and giving so much resourceful information to us here. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you for the opportunity, and bless all of you and the Kardec Radio, which is being so important around the world.
Thank you so much, Janet. We hope to have you soon again so we can develop the other understanding in greater details about the so many features on mediumship. Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Known as one of the most scientific books by Allan Kardec, The Genesis dives deeper into the origins of our planet to the advent of the new generations to come. Purchase your copy today, online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
The United States Spiritist Council invites you to the 7th U.S. Spiritist Symposium to happen on April 20th in Fort Worth, Texas. The theme of the year is Life in the Spiritual World, the works of André Lewis. More information at www.spiritistsymposium.org.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book Action and Reaction by the Spirit André Louise, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
And now we return to our program.
Welcome back to the Spiritist Moment. I am Kirsten DeMello, your host. We are studying this week the law of destruction. Question 728 of the Spirit's book, it says, is destruction a law of nature? And the answer is, quote, it is necessary for everything to be destroyed in order to be reborn and regenerated. What you call destruction is no more than transformation that is aimed at renewing and improving living beings. This is interesting on many levels, on two major levels, really, on the moral and physical level. The physical level, we see that there are physical destructions and plagues that wipe out whole societies and communities of people, and the Spirit tells us that is necessary. Natural disasters such as hurricanes or mass floods that kill large number of people, that is also necessary for the collective atonement of a group of people, but also the Spirits tell us things must be destroyed in order to be rebuilt. And Joanna de Angelis, in the book After the Storm, chapter 1 of that particular book that is psychographed by the Brazilian medium Divaldo Franco, chapter 1 is entitled Disasters. She instructs us about what entails a natural disaster. And we quote from Joanna, "When a natural disaster strikes the earth and leaves in its wake great losses, people desperately search to know the reason why." End quote. So we see that it is on purpose. Even we know that the law of destruction plays a part here, and we know that it is a part of law of destruction in the fact that also physical buildings need to be destroyed in order for things to be rebuilt, but also the human spirit, our psyche, our moral values, also the negative ones need to be destroyed so healthier habits and mental waves can be manifested. Joanna tells us later in the same message that, and we quote, "These destructions," quote, "they come to remove heavy psychic accumulations in the atmosphere that man continually expels and takes in, poisoning himself." So we see these great calamities that occur, even on a small scale. They come for cleansing on many different levels, not just on the physical level, but on the emotional, spiritual level as well. She goes on to say in the same message, and we quote, that other calamities such as plagues, fires, or great disasters are due to the backward and moral intellectual states of the planet's inhabitants. End quote. So we know that the law of justice, the law of God, none of the laws of God ever fail. They're always in constant motion. But we know that God is a loving and just God. So whatever is happening, it's for our own betterment, for the betterment of all of us, and also for those of us who aren't directly related to what is going on. It also pushes society and humanity to think about their spiritual life, what's really important, and to wake up to the reality. And Joanna ends her message stating the following, quote, "When we are touched by the suffering of many and share in the anguish that descends upon families in a catastrophe, let us help them and pray for them in a sanctifying union of brotherhood." Dear listeners, we leave you with this message as we continue to pray for our planet and all those dear souls who endure whether great calamities or small ones. Our prayers are constantly vibrating for all of us. And until next time, we wish you many blessings.
Well, my friend, the topic now is entitled Instructions from the Spirits, the New Era. Still in the first chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism, which is called, I Have Not Come to Destroy the Law. It begins with a message by an Israelite spirit. He or she again reminds us of the position we, humanity, are now after we lived the experiences with Moses and Jesus. We quote, God is unique, and Moses was a spirit whom he sent on a mission to make known his presence, not only to the Hebrews, but all the pagan world. The Hebrew peoples were God's instrument to enable him to manifest through Moses and the prophets. The vicissitudes suffered by these peoples were meant to attract their attention, and so help disclose the existence of the divinity. God's commandments, as revealed through Moses, contain the essence of the most comprehensive Christian morality. However, the biblical commentaries and annotations restrict their meaning because if they had been put into action in all their pureness, they would not have been understood. Nevertheless, these 10 commandments have become a brilliant frontispiece and a beacon destined to light up the pathway which humanity must follow. Well, dear listener, only this paragraph can give us food for thought for a long talk around the issue approached by the Spirit. He says that those peoples at the time of Moses were not prepared for a pure notion of the Christian morality. He goes on and says, we quote, "The morality taught by Moses was appropriate to the state of advancement of the people he proposed to regenerate. These people, who were semi-barbaric with respect to the perfecting of the soul, would not have understood that God could be worshipped by other means than Holocaust, nor that it is necessary to forgive one's enemies. From the materialistic, scientific, and artistic points of view, their intelligence was remarkable, but they were morally backward, and would never have been converted by a holy spiritual religion. Therefore, it was necessary that they be offered a semi-materialistic form of religion as is represented in the Hebrew faith. The Holocaust spoke to their senses at the same time that the idea of God touched their spirits." Well, my friend, this Spirit is saying something so important. The kingdom of God promised by Christ is truly spiritual, and not only once insisted that this kingdom has to be built within our hearts. The old mistake we have been making of turning a religious faith or spiritual achievement into materialistic purposes has been a great mistake that Jesus tried persistently to combat. Let's listen one more time from an excerpt from a movie in which Jesus Christ talks to the Samaritan woman.
My Samaritan ancestors worshipped God on this mountain, but you Jews say that Jerusalem is the place where we should worship God.
Believe me, woman, the time will come when people will not worship the Father either on this mountain or in Jerusalem. You Samaritans do not really know whom you worship, but we Jews know whom we worship because it is from the Jews that salvation comes. But the time is coming, and is already here, when by the power of God's Spirit, people will worship the Father as he really is, offering him the true worship that he wants. God is Spirit, and only by the power of his Spirit can people worship him as he really is.
Well, we may be saying, so this is against the physical progress. No, absolutely. Jesus here is talking about our goals in life, what they must be. The kingdom of God must be in our hearts. Matter, money, or whatever material resources are didactic stuff through which the Spirit can grow, but never a goal in itself, since when we leave this world, we won't take any of it along with us. So much so, my friend, that Jesus kept warning us to bear this always in mind. We quote, "And he said to them, take care to keep yourselves free from the desire of property. For a man's life is not made up of the number of things which he has." And he said to them in a story, Jesus, "The land of a certain man of great wealth was very fertile. And he said to himself, what is to be done? For I have no place in which to put all my fruit. And he said, this is what I'll do. I will take down my storehouses and make greater ones, and there I'll put all my grain and my goods. And I'll say to my soul, Soul, you have a great amount of goods in store, enough for a number of years. Be at rest. Take food and wine and be happy. But God said to him, according to Jesus, You foolish one, tonight I'll take your soul from you, and who then will be the owner of all the things which you have got together? This is in Luke chapter 12, verses 15 to 20. Well, my dear friend, now with the teachings of Spiritism, everything starts to sound more logical. Life goes on. The afterlife is a sound reality. The physical world is a great opportunity for the spirits to obtain virtues, and this is the right importance of the earthly experience. Matter in itself is not a sin, but when our final goal, our inner intentions, are all towards it, evil is born. As that spirit, the Israelite friend says in the first chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism, when referring to those ancient peoples, they could not understand or they could not conceive such a spiritual religious approach. That is why Christianity, after centuries on and on, has had to face the foggy world of matter and materialistic religious approaches until the Enlightenment, the development of science and social relations could come, so that Spiritism was able to bring us its job. Thank you so much.
We will return to our program after these messages.
The United States Spiritist Council invites you to the 7th U.S. Spiritist Symposium to happen on April 20th in Fort Worth, Texas. The theme of the year is Life in the Spiritual World, the works of André Lewis. More information at www.spiritistsymposium.org.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Would you like to liberate yourself from your life struggles or to find inner balance? The Inner Journey CD has 3 beautiful visualizations that will help you bring harmony to your life. As Joanna DeAngeli tells us to, live in a way that you leave enlightening footprints in your pathway as if they were stars pointing out the pathway to happiness. To find this CD, go to the bookstore on the Spiritist Society of Baltimore webpage, www.ssbaltimore.org. That is www.ssbaltimore.org, and start your inner journey today.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
A new masterpiece has just been released by EDI-CEI of America, Memoirs of a Suicide by Yvonne Pereira, a phenomenal book about what happens to suicides in the afterlife. Truly instructive, it brings greater hope that no one really dies or spends eternity in damnation. A true account of the mercy and providence of God. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Now available for purchase, the book Chico Xavier, Medium of the Century by Guy Léon Playfair. This is the first biographical and critical study in English of one of the outstanding mediums of all time, through whom more than 450 books were received by automatic writing over a 70-year period, few of which, until recently, were available in English translations. Purchase your copy today at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com.
And now we return to our program.
Hi everyone, I'm James Moroda. I'm going to talk today about the first steps we make when we start to understand that we have to evolve and develop morally and spiritually. When we notice that there's still a lot to learn and a lot to do. At such a point, we find out so many obstacles in our own imperfection that we sometimes become paralyzed, or we start thinking we can't make it because we are not good enough, or because we're not up to the task. But, as we're going to see in Emmanuel's text titled Sublime Initiation, those mistakes and imperfections are natural, and they should not discourage us, since we're beginners in the practice of love. Let's hear what he says in this free translation. Sublime Initiation. When Jesus invites us to perfection, he clearly knows all the load of flaws and shortcomings we still bear. So, it's urgent to understand the meaning of such an invitation by accepting the sublime initiation. On the rough way towards the acquisition of eternal values, the universal laws don't ask us for any ostentation of spiritual greatness. As creatures in a laborious march on the pathway of evolution, we should see to the foundations of our learning process. In times of difficulties, the divine laws don't demand certificates of superiority from us. They just request us to know how to suffer with reflection and dignity, and to assimilate the warnings from such an experience. When facing slander and mockery, the instructions of the Lord don't state we should put on a mask of indifference, but they ask us to assimilate the offenses with the blessing of fraternal comprehension. When confronted by temptations, life doesn't expect us to face them as we were senseless. We are expected to neutralize them with patience and courage, and to accumulate, in our own favor, the teachings they bring. When challenged by the worst disappointments, the regulations of eternity don't ask us for testimonies of moral dryness, but we are requested to try to forget them without discouragement and to embrace wider demonstrations of service. We must avoid decorating our existence with elusive expectations. We are human creatures on our way to the necessary sublimation, and therefore making mistakes and correcting them more and more are imperatives in our route. Despite all, however, we must be sure from today on that although we can't wear the tunics of the angels, we sure can enroll ourselves in the school of the good spirits. We hope these thoughts help you keep going, and we leave you with a song. Until next time.
Sometimes your heart won't stop hurting, 'cause someone you love has gone away. The brightest morning feels cold and dark, and it looks like a trap in the bed. Turn your mind to the best you can do now. Sow the seeds of tomorrow today. When you close your eyes tonight, don't think of the way they might have been. Turn your mind to the best you can do now. Sow the seeds of tomorrow today. Sure, we all will need forgiveness for those bad things we've said and done. But we know life will bring us a new chance. Maybe won't get it now, but somewhere else somehow. When you close your eyes tonight, don't think of the way things might have been. Turn your mind to the best you can do now. Sow the seeds of tomorrow today. When you close your eyes tonight, don't think of the way things might have been. Turn your mind to the best you can do now. Sow the seeds of tomorrow today.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.